Speaking today on real-time performance at massive scale is Francois ORSINI.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to be doing a talk. So I'd like to know in the audience how many people are actually engineers or fairly technical. Okay, so it's about like 40%, roughly, maybe. So, okay, so I'll try to make sure like I don't bore you too much, if I go too deep at the technical level. So I'll start with, the talk is going to focus on basically on what we achieved with our new game, which is basically a new genre for Machine Zone. And I'd like to talk about like what we've achieved and how we got there, and which technologies we've used. So I'd like to start with massive scalability. Massive scalability is something that people talk a lot, about, and they're like, okay, what does that mean? What do you want to do when you mention like scalability? Like, are you talking about like 100 users, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000? And that's really something that is I would like to focus on, because for us, we had a goal of being able to build a game that would handle a large number of users in a single world. So if you think of like your game as a big world, and you have like, let's say 100,000 users in the same game at the same time. So not in different regions or anything, they're actually in the same game. So this is something that we had to do. So for that, I had to think of an architecture where we would be able to scale out and support more and more users, more players in a game, as we go to a different market. If I go to Android, maybe I'm going to get another like 50,000 to 100,000 PCU, concurrent players. So you have to know what is your upper bound. Okay, what does that mean? Like how many users are going to be handling at some point within the next 2 months, 6 months? Because if you start with like, let's say 10,000, 20,000, you're happy, and because the mobile is actually very interesting, because it could grow, dramatically, the next 6 months, because you're shifting to Android or Windows, and then you're getting like a big push, big marketing push, and then all of a sudden you have to support 50K, 50,000 concurrent players or 100,000 concurrent players. So you have to know that. And how do you reach there? It's actually like, okay, how do I reach a point where I can keep on adding new users? So if you think Facebook is a good example of achieving great scalability. I mean, they do support a very large number of concurrent users, and they can actually scale up and scale out fairly well. So, but of course, we're not building Facebook, so I'm not going to put in place something that would cost a lot of money and a lot of complexity, right? If we're not doing this type of scalability. So the Brewer-Katz theorem is very interesting. The last point here is actually this guy claims that you cannot achieve consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, for your application. Basically, it means like you have to pick between, you have your data consistent, you have your data being always available, and you can actually spread your nodes, your data across nodes. If something goes down, if one of them goes down, your application is still like, working fine. And that's something that you have to think about when you actually build your systems, because you need to think in terms of like, okay, how am I going to be able to, keep this game running? Even though I know I may have some issues, right? I cannot stop the whole game. I have to keep going and be able to fail over. So this is what I'm talking about here. I'm bringing some screens as far as what is real time at massive scale. So as you can see with the 3 screens here, you have like basically a massive world of concurrent players, in that world, and everything you see on this screen is actually real time. So we have this massive game with people like players marching, fighting, speaking, talking. Here, everything is real time. So meaning that on any device, at any time, I should see pretty much the same thing, except of course if I don't have any network connectivity. But you can see as you go here, it's like you can see like a lot of battles happening. Like the guy in the middle is being attacked by 100. In this case, I was doing a test with 100 bots. So it was actually a test, being attacked against 100 bots. And you see the troops marching on the map. Everything is real time. So now you take this and you multiply it by 100,000, right, or 200,000, and you get a massive headache, because it's like, okay, how do I make sure this monster is actually running and can scale, and can scale out to even a greater number, and at the same time is capable of like achieving a very good response time? Because if your response time is not good enough, people will basically end up quitting. They will switch to another game. I mean, there are so many games coming out like every day, like every hour or so. So another form of achieving real time at, at massive scale is like translation. We've added translation in our games. So how do you translate, to 32 different languages in a room of 10,000 people, let's say, watching this room? How do you achieve it in real time? How do you deliver these messages rapidly to a lot of people, let's say 10,000 or even 20,000? This is not simple to build. I mean, it's not like, okay, I'm going to take like a lot of servers and just go and do it. No, I mean, you have to think in terms of like, how can I actually deliver these messages to a mobile phone? It's not the web, it's really like mobile, so I could be on a bad network, something slow. At the end of the day, you have to think in terms of like, what do I need to do to achieve this? So this is like an example. So the global challenges, I already kind of mentioned them. It's like single worldwide reach, okay. Then there is the actual no language barrier. So everybody is going to be, chatting in different languages. I'm in French, I can understand, Japanese now. All of a sudden I can read it, I can actually, it's interesting, but it's like, it's actually, it gets people like very surprised. And sometimes they are kind of tricked because they don't know anymore who is actually talking. Are they actually talking native English or not? Because we do actually transform chats. We do analyze and we improve translation. So we just do, or let's go and translate, some I would say slang, into something that they could not understand. We try and basically understand all that and transform and make it like understandable for all these different languages. So another example of a massive scalability is like being able to handle like 5 million to 40 million daily active users. That's pretty big. How do you handle like, again, 100 to 200 concurrent users? That's very, very tough to achieve. So, and then you have all these environments. And then you're like, okay, good luck, what do I do next? I see companies like every day, they start their game, they launch, and then after a week, I know sometimes after 3 days, right, they start getting some scalability issues. And what they end up doing is refactoring. So they refactor, they rewrite quickly. And that works, because the game went viral or the app went viral, and it does work. But, it's like, okay, it's going to work for the next week or 2 weeks, and then I have to do it again. So, and that's an example of a bad design, in my opinion, because if you don't do a very thorough analysis of your app and your goals, then you're going to hit a wall at some point. Otherwise, your app is not successful, and you're not like increasing your PCUs. So that's something to really think about. So the real time, we've talked about that in real time chats, real time events. This game is that we have right now in the App Store, which is called Game of War, is actually I would say we have the technology that you'll see in the game is about like 50% real time, really. I mean, actually more than that, but everything is real time. The UI is real time. So at the end of the day, like if I try to help you, if I send you a message, anything, it will come in soft real time. We don't do pull technology, we do push technology. So we push messages to devices. We try to get you engaged, and so we send the messages as fast as possible. And being highly, so that I'm coming back to the Brewer theorem, which is like, okay, how can I get my game running for the full year and having a max downtime of an hour? That's a tough one, especially in a game like that. So you have to think about, okay, I have to make like a lot of design choices, and also, actually basically like investment, because I need to buy the hardware to be able to compensate when there is an issue. So you have here we have like an example of like, okay, what do? You do scaling up or scaling out? Do you buy a ton of hardware? Do you buy, I would say, some expensive hardware? Or are you going to buy like 10 times the amount of hardware because your systems are not necessarily fast, as it could be. So this is something that also needs to be think in terms of like, okay, how can I really end up with a great topology where I don't have like thousands of machines if I don't have to. Because the issue is like what happens when something goes down, right? What happens if I lose like 10% of my machines because I'm on Amazon, right? And there is an outage, right? I lose like 50%. Well, guess what? In a free-to-play environment, you don't make revenues, right? And your customers are going to switch to something else. Your users are going to switch. So it's bad. Not only you're not making revenues, but your people are going to be switching to a different games because there is new games every day. So keep them engaged, keep the game running, don't stop, never stop. So at the end, you have to treat your application as a financial application, basically. And that's the way I deal with it. I treat it as a financial application. So it's there is like constant money activity, like Of course, it's a game, but at the end of the day, people are, we're not working for free, right? So it's like you have to make sure like people are engaged and people are actually, not switching to other games, right? That's the goal also. So treat it as a system where you cannot go down, like unless you don't have a choice, which is really bad. Social 2.0. So social 2.0 is really like, again, it's like how do you move to the next level? What we have today is fine, right? But look, I go to Facebook, I don't get my stuff translated all the time. I see Russian, I don't understand, right? I'd love to, but I don't. So what I do is sometimes I get an option to translate, sometimes I don't. In our games, we made a choice of like, no, we cannot miss one. We try not to miss any translation. If we miss one, we're not happy. So that's kind of stuff like, again, to do that, you have to make sure you can scale, because most of the time, if you cannot translate everything, it's because you have a scaling issue. It means like you basically cannot keep up with the flow of data that you have to translate. So in our case, we try to really like push it and translate stuff in parallel. So that's something important. And the real-time aspect, again, is, of course, is technology. It's in the mix. You have to have it. So this is not just for social gaming. I mean, it could be for anything. At the end of the day, it's like social can be applied to many things, right? I mean, gaming is just another element, which is where social is being used. So the secret sauce is like, know what you do. not what you're after, really. Understand the complexity, understand the goal, understand what you have to do. And make sure you use the right tools for the job. So I see too many people, picking up like cool stuff. Oh yeah, I heard about this cool software. Let's try it. It looks cool. I'm gonna try it. And then it's like, okay, but is it gonna be the right choice for what you need to achieve? Is it gonna scale? Is it gonna be like, how am I gonna? I mean, do I know enough of the product? So make sure you test the product. Make sure you bench it. Benchmarking means like test an actual configuration where you could have a very big load, and make sure your system is capable of handling it, your software is fine. That's really important. I mean, most people don't do that. It's like test your backups. Most people don't do that, and then when they lose data, they're like, oh no, it doesn't work anymore. So it's the same thing. If you don't if you don't benchmark your application, I can guarantee you will hit a wall. Because even if you benchmark your application, you will have issues. At the end of the day, I mean, when you're dealing with live data, it's not picture perfect, and you will hit some issues, but at least you will minimize. Maybe you'll get like 2%, you don't get like 50%. So that's very important, and again, I would say it's the most important thing to do at the end, because if you don't do that, if it doesn't work, then your launch is going to be a failure. So what you want is a perfect launch. I mean, especially if you do a freemium game, you cannot afford to say, oh yeah, no, I have to pull my game out of the store, right? And I have to stop a marketing campaign, right? I mean, like I see companies doing this, they cannot scale, so they take their game out of the store. And then they come back like 2 weeks after or 3 weeks after to fix it, but it's too late most of the time. Well, except if you're a big company, you can afford to pay, marketing, more. So again, I profile everything. So as far as real time, I'm mentioning here something very interesting that I think it's underrated, which is called Erlang. Erlang is a programming language that is actually very interesting when it comes to building real-time applications. And this is like proven, it's being used by telcos, and this is like something that you see people like actually big companies using it. But we are an Erlang shop, so we actually use Erlang quite a bit. And that's also the reason why we can achieve like real-time processing, software real-time processing of data. So this is something that I want to mention. That, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail because this could be like just an hour session, but this is a really talking about, okay, pick the right ingredients. That's one, if you want to do real time. You can do Java, yes, but at the end of the day, Java was not meant to be real time. So there is a real time, of course, Java, but if you really want to have something that is truly real time, that can actually execute a very large amount of processing in parallel, you have to pick Erlang. I mean, at the end of the day, that's pretty much all it is right now. I mean, there are also alternatives, but if you have something robust, you don't have to think twice. I mean, you cannot go wrong, really. But you have to invest. You have to understand the type of programming you do with the shift you do. So you have to build a team, and you build a team, and then you can go places with it. And that's really important to know that. So this is our real-time component. I mean, we've got real-time chat, we've got real-time events, we've got real-time timers, like push notifications, message queuing, delivery. We built all of this stuff, and this is actually great because it allows us to basically implement like a true technology like, where we can actually go and now, build different type of game or applications based on that. So like, again, like translation, like all these like chat activity going on, like sending. I'll use some numbers just after, but basically this is what you've done. So trying to be on time. So the database storage there is no SQL. People, I use MySQL. Some people like use some other stuff. And again, proven technology. It's working. It's just you end up using it and it's gonna be working. As long as you know what you're doing. Again, it's like don't try and come up with some new way of doing things, because unfortunately, if you do it, you better make sure you test it like thoroughly. So I will go to this is like some more details about the actual data, like how you do it and the mistake you shouldn't be doing, but like how you. It's very important to understand like how you partition your data, how you recovering. How do you fail over? What if I lose like a database? What happens to my game? Am I going to tell my 50,000 users or 100,000 users, hey, you can play anymore? No. So you have to basically like do a, failover, So you can do like hot standby and failover rapidly and try to keep the game running. So all this stuff actually not necessarily too complex, but you need to understand that you need to test it and you need to make sure like this can actually, this is going to work the day it happens. So you have to test it. So break stuff during your benchmarks, test it. So that's an example of like, being able to partition stuff, like sharding stuff. Make sure you have logical shards, logical partitioning. So it means like, it's very simple. It's a simple diagram, but it says a lot as far as, okay, I can identify at any point where my data is. It's like an index. I know this player is here, I know this player is here. So it's like, I can really like grow like this, like, bigger because I can just like keep on adding, new slices basically and get more users, more data. So this is like very simple. Again, it's nothing revolutionary, but it's something that you have to handle the right way. You have to do the sharding the right way. NoSQL, Redis. Redis is a good example of a great technology. It's very simple, very robust. It just runs. If it crashes, most of the time it's your memory. So that's an example of a very robust product. It's good to use, in your system. I have 2 minutes, I think. So this is like this is another slide again, like HA, high availability. Make sure, like, if you do caching, if you do Redis for caching, if something crashes, it will automatically switch to another instance. The game keeps running. So here's the numbers. Here's the interesting part of this presentation. So with the technology we have, we can do like 3.5 million messages pushed in stuff real time, a second. So under a second, actually. I think it took us like 300 milliseconds, 400 milliseconds, which is actually pretty impressive in a sense of like delivering broadcasting messages to different endpoints. So this is something that we've done. We've benchmarked it. 500,000 concurrent PCUs. Again, that's something that you want to make sure you can. If you have a game that can actually deal with 500,000 concurrent PCUs, I think you're in a great position, right? So and of course, when it happens, you're like, okay, how do I deal with it? How do I grow it to even like bigger? 100K writes a second. That's quite a lot. 250K reads per second. That's also a lot in terms of like, how do I read my data? How do I make sure my data is consistent? And then again, imagine this wall I showed you at the beginning, this image of like these battles happening. Let's say you have 100,000 real-time battles on your map. People like fighting, trying to. How do you keep this, coherent? So that when I look at my map, things will actually happen like in real time in any device. So again, that's something. And being able to translate more than 1,000 phrases a second is also one of the goals we had, and we did for our game. So that's really, and I think that's it. Yeah. This is the last slide, which is an alternative. The alternatives that you could have used, like people like to do NoSQL. Oh, I don't want to hear about SQL, for whatever reason. I could go there, but it's another hour presentation. But basically, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you can do things a different way. Just know what you are building and benchmark is really the most important thing. So I'm pretty much done. I think I'm
great.
20 minutes. Thank you.
I just want to make a comment because I'm not sure it's truly clear the magnitude of what you guys have achieved. I just interviewed Gabriel Leiden for Game Sauce, so he gave me a really great demo, and my mind was really blown when I was watching him play, because you have hundreds of thousands of real-time human beings all over the world playing this game.
Yeah,
simultaneously, and you're translating all these languages in real time in the chat forums.
Yes.
And with the capability of scaling up to even higher.
Yes.
It's really mind blowing.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you.
And then I had a question for you, which was, you said you have to treat your game like a financial application. Can you clarify that statement a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, it's like, well, I'm obsessed with performance and reliability. So performance, because I need to make sure people are engaged, people stay in the game, and reliability, because if it doesn't work, we don't make money, and the CEO is pissed. Okay, and he's in this room, so. And then that makes my blood pressure, going up. So I don't like, so we don't need that. So basically, yeah. So financial institution, I work with Wall Street, when I was at Sybase. And there's a huge amount of pressure. Like a database system, something goes down, they are pissed, they lose 5 million an hour, whatever. I mean, it was like a huge pressure. And so I treat it the same way. For me, it's like, okay, I need to make sure, like, no matter what happens, if I can fix it, I have a plan B. Right. Plan B is very important. So financial is this way. It's like, except at Wall Street, they stop on Friday, right? Most of the time. I mean, we don't stop. We never stop. At night, on the weekend, it's even worse, right? We have more users.
Yeah.
So if you treat it in the way of, like, this, it has to be, like, highly available, then you think actually bigger than financial institutions. I mean, it could be like a telco, right? Yeah. Telco cannot go down. So that's what I mean by that. It means like, and then again, for me, it's like availability and money, right? I mean, revenue. Like, you don't just make sure you keep going.
Right.
That's
Thank you. I understand now better. Other questions?
Very impressive stuff.
Thank you.
I'm familiar with Erlang in XMPP, for instance, and in Telco. How hard are you finding tracking down engineers that know how to use it correctly, or are you training them yourself?
That's a good question. I mean, it's important. Yeah, Erlang is actually, I mean, you don't have a lot of engineers, right, who are actually very savvy about Erlang. But fortunately, the ones you find usually are very good because they are actually, it's kind of a paradigm shift. And so the way we've done it, we've actually hired our own engineers. We've only hired actually experienced engineers. So we did not like do any in-house, training. I mean, I learned Erlang on my own because that's when I was studying it, I wanted to see what it could do. But we have an Erlang team, and all these guys are actually very, very seasoned, experienced engineers. And it helps a lot because when you need to do something, they just go and do it. It's just like, it's pretty fast actually. Interestingly enough, what's something people don't get is like, yeah, Erlang seems complex. It's like, but at the end of the day, it does the job very well. It's actually not difficult to develop once you know it, right? And then you get stuff like you can do stuff that are actually very rewarding in terms of like availability and performance. That's really.
Hi. You have these 500,000 concurrent connections, and I'm assuming you're broadcasting them to them with UDP. Would that be a fair statement?
We can do UDP. We don't have to do UDP. It depends on the actual response times we need. So if we have like, we don't necessarily need to do UDP. That's what basically. So when you do real-time events, for us, we need to have a guaranteed transmission, right? We have to make sure like when you send an event, it's going to get there because we don't want to use so for that we use like TCP. I mean, this is like, yeah. And of course, if you're talking like to a different level of like, like a first-person shooter, right? Where you need to, update stuff on well, that would be different, right? I mean, obviously the amount of data you are pushing would have to be a lot more optimized. So that's my fault.
Oh, I was wondering.
Okay. So so basically, so we don't for most of this stuff here we don't have to use UDP. So that's what, that's very interesting because given the amount of data we can actually, because we can send binary, we can optimize it, and we can deliver it like pretty rapidly, and again in parallel. So most of the time, we haven't had the need to actually do that. So that's...
Anything else? Thank you so much, Francois. Thank you very much.